A week-long visit from my younger sister, her husband, and their 2 children, 3 years old and 5 years old, was extended to my husband and myself. Because we are not located in the same state, this was a very unusual visit. In contrast to my sister, who is much younger than I am, who is still in the beginning phases of parenting, my own children are now young adults and have moved out of the house already. We've always been close and had a nice relationship, despite the fact that we're of different ages. Nevertheless, during this visit, I became aware of my sister's approach to gentle parenting. I had never heard of this term before, most likely due to the fact that my children are now adults and I am not up to date with the latest parenting trends. In her explanation, she stated that gentle parenting does not involve timeouts, grounding, or other traditional kinds of discipline. Rather, it consists of just talking about feelings. I found that odd, but I chose to remain silent in order to avoid developing any tension. However, I was taken aback when I witnessed it in operation over the first 2 days of the meeting. Although her children wrote on my walls, ruined my garden, and even beat my dog, they did not face any serious consequences for their actions. After 2 days, I requested them to go since I was unable to put up with the lack of discipline that they showed. During the time that they were here, my niece used crayon to draw on my walls, and my nephew ripped the flowers that I had just recently planted in my garden and tossed a rock at my car when it was parked in the driveway. To put the cherry on top of everything, they continued to pull my golden retriever's hair and smack her in the face whenever they were by. Despite the fact that she is somewhat older, my dog is really kind and quiet, and she has never reacted in a hostile manner or attempted to bite the children. I was constantly anticipating that either my sister or her husband would intervene and reprimand them, but neither of them ever did. As a result, I attempted to handle the situation on my own by instructing the children to stop or by reprimanding them a little bit, but this simply made my sister even more angry. She informed me that it was not my responsibility to discipline her children. In spite of the fact that I agreed that the parents ought to be the ones to do it, I stated that someone needed to because they were causing damage to my house. It was, however, very evident that they were not willing to take the initiative. I advised that they give the children a severe punishment and make them clean up what they had ruined. But my sister went off on me about how they do not spank their children in the same way that we were spanked when we were young. To clarify, I was not asking that they be spanked. Rather, I was suggesting that they have a serious conversation with me and that they take responsibility for their behavior. She, however, disregarded it, stating that the actions they took did not justify what I would consider to be discipline. The only thing she did in each situation was inquire about the emotions that they were experiencing that led to their behavior. And that was the extent of her intervention. After coming to the conclusion that their behavior was not going to change, my husband and I informed them that they needed to either find a motel or go home, despite the fact that they had intended to remain for a whole week. Because of the gentle parenting method, we were unable to handle their visit for more than 2 days at a reasonable time. I told my sister that the way she raises her children is putting them in a difficult situation that could potentially lead to them getting into legal trouble at some point in their lives. The situation became much more serious when I informed her that this hippy-dippy gentle parenting is a swindle that would wreck the lives of her children. She argued back, but the situation became much more serious. In retrospect, I deeply regret having said it, but at the time, I was simply so irritated. Now, she is refusing to communicate with me, and our mother believes that I am in the wrong for kicking them out when they had intended to remain for a longer period of time. Who am I, the jerk? You might be surprised to learn that what you did with her children was more in line with the concept of gentle parenting than you might imagine. The concept of gentle parenting involves establishing limits, and it appears like your sister does not have any boundaries with her children. This can be just as destructive as parenting approaches that are more harsh. An example of a boundary would be to remove the dog from the children if they are unable to act appropriately around the dog. Your actions with your sister, in which you requested that they go, were likewise an example of setting a boundary. I should have stated raised voice instead of yell because that is more an accurate description of what I meant to say. I have never used physical force with my own children. assuming that children will only be exposed to a tone that is extremely calm 100% of the time, and then expect them to be able to deal with anything different in the real world as adults is an unrealistic expectation. Undoubtedly, there are situations in which it is appropriate to speak in a louder voice. That's great if you don't agree with me, but I'm going to guess that you're a monk. It appears that my sister's interpretation of the word gentle sounds like. Even that kind of parenting feels like a strange choice to me, even though my sister's approach to parenting is not truly what I perceive to be gentle parenting. If it had been available to my children when they were younger, I have no idea how well it would have worked for them. All I can say is that this new generation of parents is simply approaching things in a different manner. I have no idea how it will turn out for society in the long term, but I suppose that everyone has their own opinion on the matter. Because the world is not a gentle place, how will these children who have been raised with gentle parenting react when someone yells at them or does something that they have not been prepared for by way of gentle parenting? It is possible that gentle parenting would make sense if we lived in a perfect utopia. Nevertheless, I do not believe that this is a realistic method. At this point, I do not intend to extend an invitation to my sister to stay at my house again if she brings her children, and that is assuming that she engages in conversation with me once more. In spite of everything, I have optimism that we will be able to repair our connection because she is still my sister, but I simply am not capable of dealing with her children. In the practice of gentle parenting, it is still acceptable to establish limits and to object. There is a part of me that wonders if this scenario is being overdone, because you appear to be so focused on the idea of gentle parenting rather than dealing with the behavior of your sister. I am paying a lot of attention to gentle parenting since I believe that it is the primary reason for a breakdown in my connection with my sister, which is something that I have always treasured. Despite the fact that I am aware of my sister's behavior, I have the impression that her approach to parenting has fundamentally altered who she is as a person. The original post, "I did have kids of my own and they're grown now. They never did things like that because they knew there would be consequences, so they didn't behave like wild children." Initially, I believed that we would be able to resolve our disagreements. Take a look at me, talking about emotions. You need to be proud of yourself. In all honesty, I'm pretty well finished as well. It is my intention to make it clear that although I consider you to be a member of my family, this does not imply that I will be a softie and permit your children to behave in the same manner that they did in my home, particularly by pulling Bella's hair and hitting her in the face. That was cruel and inhumane treatment of animals, and it was totally wrong. The fact that you and Stephen allow them to behave in such a manner is beyond my understanding. However, despite the fact that some people have suggested that I send you a fee for the damage that your children caused, I will not be doing that. I will pay for the repairs myself, but only because I am confident that this will never happen again. Your children are not permitted to return to my house unless you make significant changes to the way you parent and begin enforcing real discipline. Before it is too late and their future is in danger, you need to find some type of true discipline for them. I am not suggesting that you should physically discipline them, but you should find some form of discipline. I am at a loss to comprehend the reason for your selection of this particular approach to gentle parenting, and it appears to have an effect on your personality. You no longer behave in the same manner as you did in the past, and it seems as though you are now offended by everything and disagree with the way that anyone else behaves in any situation. Honestly, I don't. I am completely perplexed by what took place. I wasn't simply that I was being tough. There must be consequences for bad behavior. Otherwise, you are doing your children a disservice by your actions. The way you have behaved is not very kind. Allison, who is not her real name, has finally gotten in touch with me. She came to the conclusion that the parenting choices are results of neglect. When she asked me if I agreed, I responded by saying that I believe that making some adjustments to the way she approaches parenting could be of great assistance. She acknowledged that she had attempted to practice gentle parenting, but she now understands that she may have misunderstood what it meant. In response to my inquiry about her future plans, she expressed her regret for the manner in which her children had acted. A further point that she brought up was that she and her husband had lost friends due to the fact that people do not want to be around their children. All of this misfortune has served as a wake-up call for her. Because the gentle parenting approach did not turn out the way she had anticipated, Allison has stated that she is going to experiment with a different parenting technique. Although she has stated that she will begin implementing consequences and penalties, she has not yet implemented any form of physical punishment. I informed her that I believe that to be a really positive step forward. Her main concern is that the children may not react positively to it and that it may even lead to more complications. I informed her that they would only need to alter their behavior. It would appear that her husband was never on board with the gentle parenting style, and the fact that they did not agree on it even led to some difficulties in their marriage. Now that she has finally come around to the idea of enacting some type of consequences and punishment for their children, he feels relieved from the situation. My opinion is that she is making a really smart choice, and I told her so. In spite of the fact that I am still furious by what her children did to my house and dog, the fact that she is willing to adapt her parenting style in order to prevent it from happening again makes me feel a great deal less disappointed. Indeed, we were able to find a solution to the problem. The only thing that happened was that she made a mistake in her parenting, but she is a decent person overall. There have been a number of people who have observed on gentle parenting, and from what I've been reading, it seems to involve the child doing something wrong, then the parent asking how they are feeling, then redirecting them to a new chore or activity, and calling that redirection the discipline or natural consequence. According to my understanding, that is the definition of permissive parenting because there is nothing in the way of appropriate punishments or consequences had been implemented as of yet. Because she only focused on talking about feelings and did not include redirection or even a simple "no, don't do that." My sister definitely did not practice the form of gentle parenting that everyone described. I still find that permissive parenting and gentle parenting seem to be very similar to one another, if not the same. Kids are going to be absolutely taken aback and perplexed when they are confronted with real consequences and punishment in the real world if they are taught that redirection is what happens if they do something wrong. In the event that they reach adulthood and steal a vehicle, for instance, the authorities will place them under arrest, send them to jail, and require them to pay a fine. As a result of the fact that they were just anticipating a natural consequence, such as returning the car to its owner and continuing on with their day, they would be taken aback and believe that the penalty is extremely severe. Real consequences are a crucial element of true gentle parenting. Natural consequences do not mean any consequences. Like you said, if you steal a car and get arrested, that's the natural consequence of your actions. The same applies to gentle parenting. If my kid throws a toy at me, the natural consequence is that I'm going to put that toy away